Welcome to the Saturday CuppaJoe podcast. This podcast is dedicated to EAS employees of the U.S. Postal Service and members of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee and join us for today's episode. And now, here's your host, Robert Wakefield.
Good morning, Branch 32, and good morning, NAPS family. Got a great show lined up for you today. That's right, a great show, but who am I? Who am I talking right now? Who is the guy behind the microphone? Well, that's pretty simple. Me. I'm Robert Wakefield, president of Branch 32. Thank you so much. That's right. Now let's go ahead and let's pour that first cup. It's never too early to start a financial adventure. This summer, we're helping our youngest members reach for the stars with a special boost to their savings. Open a new youth savings account with us and watch how fast your money grows. As a bonus, we will add $25 to your child's youth savings account when it's opened and enter them into a drawing for a chance to win a new iPad. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our first cup this morning, we have a very special episode lined up for just you. That's right, just you, the listener. And so let's go ahead and let's cue the music now. I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today's episode is a milestone. That's right. One of those stones that tell you what mile you're at. I have no idea. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is episode 100. That's right, 100 episodes of the Saturday CuppaJoe podcast. 100 Saturdays together, drinking a cup of coffee and talk. Okay, that's enough of the music. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, 100 Saturdays of drinking a cup of Joe and talking about having honest conversations about what it means to be an EAS employee in the United States Postal Service, and especially those who are in NAPS. When we started this podcast a little over a year ago, our mission was pretty simple. We just wanted to support NAPS members with clarity. We wanted to hopefully provide some courage and a sense of community, because that's what this podcast is all about. So today, I'm going to look back and I'm going to talk about some of the things that we did in the previous 99 episodes. Well, I think the thing that it's rooted in, the Saturday CuppaJoe podcast, it's rooted in advocacy, really. We had an episode called The Rule Book. And what that did, it reminded us that the ELM isn't just policy, but it's protection for us as EAS members. We had another episode called Zero False Scanning. And it was a reminder that integrity and accountability for those of us who are EAS or for those of us who are in NAPS is extremely, extremely important. We also looked at an episode called What About Serving? And that challenged all of us to rediscover the meaning of service. I think sometimes we've missed that in the U.S. Postal Service. Now, it's my hope that these episodes have helped NAPS members navigate tough days, because there are plenty of them out there. Every day is different, and what you guys are going through now is just amazing. But the foundation for this podcast, I want it to be leadership with heart. I want it to be advocacy with honesty and accountability with compassion. That's pretty cool. So we've had some over the past 100 episodes. We've welcomed voices all across the Naps family to be a part of the show. We've had the national president, Ivan Butts. He was in the prior podcast. That was his final week of being the national president, and he's always been so great when he's come on. He has always been consistent with his message. He talks to EAS employees, and he says that they deserve fairness, respect, and I love how he puts a seat at the table. And when he came on the show, he brought a national perspective, which I thought was pretty cool. And he talked about things about pay and retention and the future of postal leadership. So it was always great to have Ivan on. We've had Bob Levy, the Director of Legislative and Political Affairs, on the program several times. And he connected listeners to Capitol Hill and talked about the importance of SPAC. And we talked about the legislative engine that's behind the NAPS advocacy efforts with LTS and the like. Brian Wagner. Brian's been on the show many times. He has brought his laid-back humor, and he's brought his ice cream flavor of the month, or the week rather, to just about every episode he's been on. And so it's always great to have Brian's perspective because he does so much training, and he absolutely does a great job when he comes on the podcast. We've had Donna Aaron, who is the state president of Branch 947, and she brings stories from East Tennessee that really brings some real-world leadership challenges down to the low gravy, if you will. I always love talking to Donna. Donna and I talk quite a bit throughout the weeks because we're both in Tennessee, so it was always great to have her on. And then we have Jimmy Warden, who is then he was the NAP Secretary Treasurer. Jimmy's Forget About It episode, if you go back and look, it became an instant classic. It's so good. If you haven't listened, forget about it. Go and check out Jimmy Warden. But Jimmy's been on the show several times, and so has Chuck Mullador. He brings clarity and humor, and he's brought some practical leadership to episodes that listeners have really enjoyed. Now, these guests, they just didn't join the show. They helped shape a national leadership conversation, which is just absolutely fantastic for a podcast such as this. Now, I always like doing series because it helps me keep focus on what we're talking about. And the series several of the series that defined this podcast, the first one was the Don't Quit series. And that's episodes 60 through 66. And we did those episodes during peak season. And it was just our hope that we encourage NAPS members not to quit on yourself, not to quit on your team or quit on the standards. Don't quit on the communication, and don't quit on the Postal Service. And don't quit on your values and your integrity, and don't quit on your NAPS family. And I got some great feedback from that. How that even though these things are very important, several of you mentioned to me that you don't feel supported by your upper manager. And that's important. But it was just an encouragement thing not to quit during the busiest time of the year. And then we did episodes 83 through 88, and that was the Elm 651 series. And what I hoped we did was that we took this policy and we broke it down into practical leadership. We talked about coaching. We talked about mentoring and the shared responsibility that we have between our managers and ourselves. We talked about reinforcement. We talked about developing a mindset. And then we wrapped the whole thing up with a show that talked about that. And this series has become a training tool for branches nationwide. And I appreciate that. That's really, really cool. The Elm 651.3 series was very, very popular. And then the last series that I'll mention is the LTS 2026 series. That was episodes 76 through 82. And it captured the energy of the legislative training seminar. We talked to first-timers. We talked to leaders, with national officers. They all contributed to that series. But, if I think about it, it's the stories that stick with me. That's what I like. Saturday CuppaJoe has always been strongest when we can tell a story, like episodes called Two Stories, One Lesson, which was a reminder to EAS employees, and especially NAPS employees, to protect themselves. There was an episode called Instructed to Do What? And it showed the importance of knowing your rights. There was an episode called Three Wishes, and that kind of blended humor and leadership and humanity all together. Then episode 53 was the one-year anniversary show, and that set the stage for today's celebration. So, looking forward, what does the next 100 episodes look like? Good Christ, I can't even imagine. Well, as we celebrate today's 100th episode, I want to look ahead, and if I had to set a goal, I want to increase member participation in Branch 32 and nationwide. NAPS is strongest when members are engaged. So I want to hear from NAPS branches from across the country. Occasionally, I'll get a little feedback. Somebody will send an email or they'll respond by a text. Occasionally, I'll hear something, but I want increased membership participation across the country in this podcast, because I'm doing this podcast for you. I enjoy doing them, but by having more EAS employees involved, I think that would be a great thing. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to encourage more NAPS members to attend branch meetings, to increase our participation in SPAC, to expand our involvement in LTS. I want to continue to talk to leaders of NAPS and leaders of the organization, just to bring new voices to the podcast so that we can hear how things are out there in the real world. So, goal number 2, I'd love to have the PMG on. Wouldn't that be a hoot? The Postmaster General Steiner, this is your invitation. You can call me anytime, and we will put you on the podcast. I think that would be really, really cool. So I think what the Saturday CuppaJoe will continue to do is we'll try to coach and mentor. We'll try to give you some real-world leadership scenarios, if you will. And goal number 3, I think, is I just want a stronger, more connected NAPS family. I think that's the big thing I'd like to see in the next 100 episodes. So here's the challenge for Branch 32 and everyone else. Can Branch 32 and every NAPS member or branch across the country, rather, increase active member participation by 25% before episode 150? Wow. Now, there's a challenge. Increase active member participation. Now, that could be not just attendance or open emails or just liking a post. I'm talking about real participation, real engagement. That's the question that I want to challenge you to. And here's what I'd like every listener to respond to, whether you're in Branch 32 or anywhere in the country. What is the one thing that you will personally commit to do to strengthen your branch? Send your responses. You can through Branch 32 on our chat feature. You can send it to our email, or you can even make that comment on our YouTube channel. Yes, we have a YouTube channel, and it's growing. So, here's to the next 100. To everyone who has listened and shared and commented and reached out, I thank you. To every guest who came on the show and was a part of that, I thank you too. To every NAPS member across the country, your leadership matters. Your integrity matters, and your work matters. Never let anybody take that away from you. The bell is about to ring on a brand new school year, and our local classrooms could use a little extra boost. At this year's Back to School Bash, we're coming together to support the students and the educators who make our community stronger. You can help by donating the essentials our kids need the most: crayons, glue sticks, pencils, and paper. Your generosity makes a world of difference for a child walking into class prepared and confident. Let's start the school year right together. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our second cup today, let me just say thank you once again for the 100th episode, and let me thank the Nashville Post Office Credit Union for being the sponsor of the Saturday CuppaJoe podcast. It's very important that I mention them because they are the ones who help defray some of the costs of this, and I appreciate that so very, very much. And they're great people over there. If you've ever looked it up online, npocu.org, National Post Office Credit Union.org is where you can find that. They're updating their website very soon, so go and check that out. One other thing that I'm looking forward to is in the next few weeks talking to the newly elected members of NAPS who are serving in offices. So I'll be reaching out to several of those, and we'll be talking about that. We'll talk about some reactions to the convention and what they liked, what they didn't like, etc., etc., etc. All right, thank you for making this 100th episode a very special one for me. I really do appreciate it, and I would appreciate it even more if you would share this with your branch. That's right, get your branch signed up to listen every week and send me your ideas. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear about? We'll be glad to entertain every single idea that you send. You can send that through our YouTube channel in the comments section, or you can send an email to our email address that will be mentioned here in just a moment. And you can do the chat feature at napsbranch32.org. Any of those ways will work. All right. So thank you so much for listening today. I'm Robert Wakefield, and remember, every great weekend starts with a great cup of Joe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Saturday CuppaJoe podcast. Please note that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Robert Wakefield and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. We welcome your questions and comments, so send those to SaturdayCuppaJoe@gmail.com.